Srila Bhakti Began Bharati Maharaj ki Dali Vishtam Vishnupada Astatir Sati Srimad Srila Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj ki Dali Vishtam Vishnupada Astatir Sati Srimad Srila Bhakti Began Keshava Goswami Maharaj ki Dali Vishtam Vishnupada Astatir Sati Srimad Srila Bhakti Rakshakshi Gurudev Goswami Maharaj ki Dali Vishtam Vishnupad Paramahansa Acharya Asvatar Sata Shri Srimad Jagaguru Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada ki Mahabhagavat Srila Gaura Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj Shakta Goswami Sachchit Ananda Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur ki Vaishnava Sarvabhauma Srila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj ki Shri Vedanta Acharya Srila Dev Bhushan Prabhu ki Shri Acharya Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur ki Janaratan Srinivasananda Prabhutrai ki Shri Krishna Kaviraj Goswami Prabhu ki Shri Rupa Shri Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jeev Gopala Bhatta Das Raghunath Shad Goswami Prabhu ki Shri Sritamara Roy Rananda Shri Gaura Parashad Vrinda ki Namacharya Shri Haridas Thakur ki Prem Sikho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Shri Gaur Bhaktivinoda ki Shri Navadvip Maya Purdam ki Ganga Devi ki Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki Bhakti Devi ki Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Sham Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhana ki Shri Vrindavan Dham ki Shrimati Devi ki Shrimati Purnamasi Bhagavati Yogamaya ki Shrimati Tulasi Marani Vrinda Devi ki Gopishwara Mahadev ki Jagannath Baladeva Subhadra Devi Surasam Chakachetradam Tadavokinath Narsimha Bhagavan ki Bhakti Prabhara Prahlad Maharaj ki Ananta Koti Vaishnavin ki Samagata Bhaktivinoda ki Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari.
Do you know why we say Gaur Premanande?
The flow of praise. For the flow.
We hear it all the time, right? But what is the meaning? Why are we saying it? We usually say it at particular times, right? At the end of the kirtan, right? Or the end of the class, or Gurudev also said Gaur Premanande. What is it though? Let's contemplate on that.
She's saying that may the pure love of Mahaprabhu manifest in my heart.
Yeah, that's anything more? You say Nitai Gaur Premanande. Why Premanande?
Nitai and Gauranga are getting the bliss of praying.
Yeah, that's right.
And then you say Hari Hari Bol.
Then everybody responds, Hari Hari Bol.
Chanting their names.
Yeah. What is it though? What is it? Why are we saying it?
Just
To beseech.
Okay.
To me, it always feels like all glories to just like celebrating this opportunity, like all glories for this.
Yes, that's, I think, most accurate, what you just told. Because what are we stating? What do the words actually mean? It means like, all glories to the praying that Gauranga Mahaprabhu has brought to this world. Gaur Prem, and the Ananda which is connected with that prem. The lifestyle of our devotional practices, the regulative practices of bhakti, right? So we are all aiming to attain this prem. That's the ultimate objective, is to obtain this prem. Gaur Prem. Oh, you have a writing table now. So, our gatherings, our discussions, classes, artik, all of this is part and parcel of these very special practices that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu brought, instructed Rupa Goswami and the Acharyas, that all the spiritual masters are teaching to their disciples. And especially when we come into a big, huge assembly, like during Navadvip Parikrama time, and there's a few thousand devotees, and when the devotee says to the whole audience very loudly, Gaur Premanande, and then everybody raises their hands and they just respond, Hari Hari Bol. What is it? This is a peculiar, special thing in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Sampradaya. You see something a little bit like in Baptist churches where they're all singing and dancing, they call those revivals or something, right? But the kirtan of Gauranga Mahaprabhu and Nityananda Prabhu is Gaur Kirtan, and it is Prem Nam Sankirtan. Prem Nam Sankirtan. The chanting of the holy names is meant to attain Prem. And which Prem? Gaur Prem. What Nitai and Gaur have come to give is called Gaur Prem. And we're on every level, even in the beginning stages, we're embracing that process that they've come to give, particularly Nam Sankirtan, right? Because Gaur Prem is not attainable except through Nam Sankirtan, right? So we should never allow this ritual to become only that, like a regulative ritual and so forth. But our heart should be there, our mind should be there, and like you said, beseeching. We're all beggars, right? And way up there is that Gaur Prem. And then why is Mahaprabhu's arms up in the air and Nityananda Prabhu's arms up in the air? Why? And why is Mahaprabhu standing next to Radha and Krishna with one arm up and one arm down? Do you know?
Taking and giving.
That's right. He is bringing that Golokera Prema Dhana Harinam Sankirtana. That song of Narottam Das Thakur. Golokera Prema Dhana Harinam Sankirtana. That great dhana, that great wealth of prem that is only found in Goloka. Only found in Goloka. So Golokera Prem Dhana. That great wealth of Goloka Prem, right? Mahaprabhu has transported it here and distributing it through Harinam Sankirtan. You see. So, I don't know, in ISKCON I don't remember them saying it so often. Gaur Premanandi. This Prabhupada's, his Jayadwani was a little bit different. Very shortened, And at the end, he said, thank you very much. Assembled devotees, and then thank you very much, like that. But in Gaudiya Math, that's always there. So I just wanted to bring our attention to that, because it's very important. Every devotee should understand why we say that. What is the internal meanings and so forth. why we're saying Gaur Premanande. Because sometimes it can become like Jai Prabhu, some ordinary language that we use. But we're saying it with heart and soul, actually. That culmination of the Jayadvani, of all the personalities' names, of all everything. And then at the end, Nitai Gaur Premanande, has very, very deep meaning. Now we're going to continue. And there are 4 pages that brings us in this lecture of Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Maharaj, brings us up to the point where we began to read on the first day. And we'll see if we can get there. Should be able to. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangam Langayate Girim Yat Kripa Tamaham Bande Shri Gurun Dinatayanam. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyevacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Namo mahabhadanyaya Krishna prema pradayate Krishnaya Krishna chaitanya namne Gaura Chise Namaha. Nityanandam Namastubhyam Premananda Pradayane Kalo Kalmashanashaya Janava Pataye Nama Panchatattvatmakam Krishnam Bhakta Rupa Swarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakyam Namami Bhakta Shaktikam. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bandho Jagatpade Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vrindai Tulsi Devi Priyai Keshavasyacha Krishna Bhakti Prade Devi Satyavachai Namo Namah. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vas Adi Gaur Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. My unlimited Dandavat pranams and my Shraddha Pushpanjali at the lotus feet of my most worshipable beloved Gurudev Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Vishnu Pad Paramahansa Ashtatara Sata Sri Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada, and the same unlimited Dandavat pranams and Shraddha Pushpanjali at the lotus feet of my most worshipable beloved Siksha Gurudevs, Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Vishnu Pad Paramahansa Ashtatara Sata Sri Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Goswami Maharaj and Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Vishnu Pad Paramahansa Ashtatara Sata Sri Srila Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. My Dandavat pranams at the lotus feet of all my Shri Shri Rupa Nuga Guru Varga, and my Dandavat pranams to all of the Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis. Now, yesterday we read one verse at the very end of the class, which is Rupa Goswami's composition. And what Srila Sridhar Maharaj is laying out before us is the actual course of advancement, stage by stage by stage by stage, of the devotee. And especially the internal changes that will happen progressively as the devotee advances, and what will be his realization that comes to him at those times. Now you remember how we were reading how Srila Rupa Goswami was speaking about himself as being the most wretched, sinful performer of aparads and so forth. So that's the beginning of the approach. Srila Sridhar Maharaj is actually, these are 4 verses. These verses are 4 verses which come in the same sequence that he's introducing it. But it's very, very interesting. I've never seen this before in other places. Srila Sridhar Maharaj is walking us through these verses, the meaning, the internal mood, the emotions that will be felt by the devotee in relation to his seeking his highest prospect, right? So, on the first day, because we had segued from the end of the Nectar Devotion chapter 1, where Srimati Radhika was being glorified, so I came to that place in this lecture, right, in which he was very much describing Srimati Radhika's position, and how Radhika is the Swarup Shakti potency of Krishna. And we completed the chapter that first night. I think we completed it that first night. Yeah. When I read it after the Artika. But then I thought the next day, okay, well, let me go to the beginning. And then we'll take this little journey together, guided by Srila Sridhar Maharaj, who's showing us how, even from the very beginning, even from the stage of impersonal realization of Atma, but there is always a progression, and there's always different stages until we come to the final stage. Just like in Brihad Bhagavatamrita, Sanatana Goswami has given 2 different, very epic journeys. One of Narada Rishi, who's searching for the greatest recipient of Krishna's mercy. And he goes from one to the next to the next. So gradations is something that one has to understand. They use this term gradations. In spiritual life, there are always gradations. It's not all one, always gradations. So, and what he's doing here in this lecture, this darshan, is he's tracing out the course which we will have to gradually understand. So you remember when he was saying the Bhagavan conception is higher than the Paramatma conception, which is higher than the Brahman conception, but then when one comes to the Bhagavan conception, then one comes to the Krishna conception. But even in the Krishna conception, there are different levels. And first of all, Vasudeva conception of Krishna, Krishna alone. And then after that, there is Mathura Krishna, Dwarka Krishna, and Vrindavan Krishna. So, all different levels and gradations. Actually, this is what Srila Prabhupada intended to depict in this great temple being built in Mayapur by ISKCON, the Temple of the Vedic Planetarium, they call it, TOVP. You know how that came about? Well, just listen to me now, and now you're going to know. How did that idea come to Srila Prabhupada to build such a temple? I first heard about it when I was in St. Louis Temple in 1976, and a mail came from Shama Sundar, Prabhupada's secretary, who was traveling with Prabhupada in India. And he sent out to all the temples this diagram. It was like an aerial view of a Vedic city and how the city is, you know, has walls around it, just like when you go to Sri Rangam and so forth. You may remember.
Now I remember.
Yeah. Yeah, and he was describing to everybody that Prabhupada has come up with this plan, that he wants to build this temple. And he talked about it. But preceding this, where Prabhupada is mentioning it, guess where it came from? Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Maharaj. You never heard that before? Okay, here's how it happened. Srila Sridhar Maharaj told this story, that in his own mutt, he had, one of his favorite books of all time, Srila Sridhar Maharaj, is Brihad Bhagavatamrita. And the journey of Gopakumar, right? And the journey of Narada, right? And Srila Sridhar Maharaj, he had the idea that it would be a very nice thing to build a structure, a temple, which would show the different levels and like this. So, when he met with our Srila Prabhupada, might have been 1975 or around there, he related this to Prabhupada, that he had this ambition, this desire to depict that. Shri Shri Guru Gauranga Radha Govinda Jiv Ki Jai, Jai Jagannath. He was sitting with him, with Prabhupada. Prabhupada came to visit him there. And then he related that this idea, that he had that idea to build such a structure to depict the journey of Brihad Bhagavatamrita like that. So then Srila Prabhupada responded and said, we will build that temple there, Mayapur, and it will be built under your direction. Yeah. That's how the idea actually came. Now we can't say that maybe Prabhupada had a similar idea before that, or just like in Navadvip Dham Mahatmya, it's stated by Lord Nityananda that a very great temple will be built. Some of the Gaudiya Math, they feel that that statement by Lord Nityananda was indicating the temple that now sits right there on the birthplace of Mahaprabhu, because that's quite a big temple. It is. And this is what Prabhupada had in mind. Prabhupada was not thinking small. You should know that Srila Prabhupada, when he was introducing that idea of having like a Vedic city surrounding the temple, and in fact Prabhupada did lay the cornerstone way out in the fields, but somehow or other ISKCON lost that property. I don't know all the details, I've heard different stories, but they made some big, huge, blunderous mistake, and they lost that property, which was on the outskirts, out into rice fields, you know. That's why they had to stall the plan off, and then what happened was, they made an idea that we will make it right next to the original small Chandrodaya Mandir, right? So that's why when you enter into the front gate, right there is the border wall of the huge structure. which is just right near to the road. But that was not the original plan. It was supposed to be way out, and then everything would be built around that. But now they've squeezed it into this little area, but it's pretty big. But what they did is they've extended the front side of it, the front entryway, which is facing towards Godruma, towards the Jalangi River, and the whole entrance will be way down there by the Jalangi. There'll be whole new road systems and everything built, and then you can see in the 3D diagram online, because they have that, architectural moving diagram online to depict what it will be like. And so it's like maybe, I don't know, maybe 2 miles from the Jalangi to the entryway
Maybe 2
by
kilometers.
by the front gate. Yeah, okay. Maybe a mile.
Yeah,
Okay.
maybe a mile and a half.
Yeah. Yeah, so that whole area is going to be the grand entranceway where they're going to have lines of trees and gardens and chairs for people to sit and the whole thing, But that was not the original plan, that it would be right next to the Ganga. The Ganga would be some distance away and it would be out into the fields. So anyway, that's the way it has now happened. It's too late to change that.
But there won't be room for doing that Vedic village where there were Brahmins,
Yeah.
Kshatriyas.
Yeah, it's not in the middle of the city. The temple was supposed to be in the middle of the city, but that's what happened. So, anyway, yeah, I wanted to mention that because of Srila Sridhar Maharaj. So we read yesterday. We're going to continue from there in the small amount of time that we have. That this verse by Rupa Goswami, that Yuvati nam yata yuvam cha yuvato yata, mano biramate tadvan, mano biramatam tvai. Just as a young boy feels attraction for a young girl, I want that sort of attraction towards you. I want to be engrossed in you, forgetting all material paraphernalia. And by sincere surrender, at once our progress begins. And the development of that kind of attraction takes us to the topmost rank. I want that intimate connection with you, my Lord. I am the neediest of the needy, but at the same time, I have this ambition. I am so disgusted with the world outside that I want the most intense and comprehensive relationship with you. With this attitude, then the surrendering process begins and rises step by step. I want that standard of divine love, of intimacy with you. I want to dive deep within you. So that's his translation, expanded translation of the meaning of that verse. Now,
Who wrote this?
huh?
Who wrote this?
Rupa Goswami. Then, see, there are 4 verses, I told this yesterday, 4 verses that are included in Archan Padati. He's going to mention that right now for the next 3rd verse. These 4 verses are recited by pujaris when they do Archan. And then therefore it's included in the book, Archan Padati. So now the next verse, I'm reading, Govinda Balabe Radhe, Prarte Tvam Aham Sada, Tvadiyam Iti Jana Tu, Govindo Mam Tvaya Saha. Srila Sridhar Maharaj is explaining this prayer is found in the Archan Padati, which comes from Gopal Bhatta Goswami's edition of the Hari Bhakti Vilas. So the Archan Padati is part of the Hari Bhakti Vilas. But you remember when it was printed in 1975, it was printed in ISKCON with the introduction of Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Maharaj. And that's how everybody learned the processes of Archan and the mantras and everything. So Srila Sridhar Maharaj is saying that from there, meaning from the Hari Bhakti Vilas, Gopal's Bhatta Goswami's edition, from there it has sprung through him, this prayer. It is there in the Shastra, which is an eternal flow of a particular current of knowledge. Everything is eternal in Vaikuntha and Goloka, just as the sun comes up and goes down, appears and disappears. So the thought is eternal, and sometimes it appears and sometimes disappears. So in this verse, Govinda Balabhe Radhe, there is a sudden turn. So now he's again talking about each verse being a progressive understanding and realization. So now there's a sudden turn, he says. Krishna says to his devotee, "Oh, do you want an intimate relationship with me?" Because in the last verse, he's expressing that, right? So Krishna says to the devotee, "Oh, do you want an intimate relationship with me? It is not to be found within my department. You will have to go to another department. Go then to the department of Radhika." Then at once the devotee's thought is transferred towards that side. All his energy is monopolized there, and it is her monopoly. Quote, "Your inner quest is not to be found within my department," Krishna says. "You'll have to go elsewhere, and you'll have to file a petition there." And with this inspiration, at once the devotee puts his petition to Radharani by saying, "Govinda Balabhe Radhe, O Shri Radhe, your master and sustainer is Govinda." Govinda Balaba. You know what that means, right? Balaba means what? The word Ballabha, Krishna Ballabha. Ballabha means beloved. Beloved. Ballabha. Radha Ballabha. So here he has addressed Radharani as Govinda Ballabha, the most beloved of Govinda. Govinda Balabhe Radhe, I'm appealing to you. So, O Shri Radhe, your master and your sustainer is Govinda. Now how is he using the word sustainer? Now you hear. He is the Lord of your heart. Govinda means he who can give fulfillment to all our senses. That's the meaning of Govinda. Go means senses. Vinda means nourishment, fulfillment, pleasure. Govinda. So, Govinda means he who can give fulfillment to all our senses. With our senses, we can feel perception as well as knowledge. Govinda is the master who gives fulfillment to all our channels of perception. Govinda is your Lord, the devotee is saying. Govinda Ballabha. He is your Lord. But just the opposite is also true. You are mistress of the heart of Govinda, the Supreme Master. Is it not? You are queen of the heart of Govinda. I have been directed to come to you with my petition. Please enlist my name in your department and admit me as a servitor in your group. So this verse is telling Govinda Balabhe Radhe, Prarthai Tvamaham Sada. I'm always doing prarthana to you. Aham Sada. Sada means always. I'm always praying to you, Govinda Balabhe Radhe. What to do what? Tadiyam iti janatu. Tadiyam means consider me to be your tvadiya, your intimate servitor in your group. Govindo mam tvaya saha, where you are the queen along with Govinda. So this is a very sweet and intimate prayer, which leads to the final prayer. This section is called Flowing River of Nectar. Radhe Vrindavanadishe Karunam Ritavahini Kripaya Nijapadabja Dasyam Mahyam Pradiyatam. O Radhe, O Queen of Vrindavan, you are like a flowing river filled with the nectar of mercy. Here he says, Karunamrita Vahini, he's going to explain. You are like a flowing river filled with the nectar of mercy. Karunamrita Vahini. Vahini means like a flow, like a river. So, O Radhe, O Queen of Vrindavan, what is her name? Vrindavan Adishe. Radhe Vrindavan Adishe. O Radhe, you are the Adisha. You are the queen of Vrindavan. And Karunamrita Vahini, you are like a flowing river of the nectar of mercy. Karuna Amrita. Please be kind upon me and bestow upon me some small service. Kripaya Nija Padabja Dasyam Mahyam Pradiyatam. Pradiyatam. Bestow upon me Dasyam, service. Please be merciful. Kripaya. And bestow service unto Nija Padabja, your very own lotus feet. So please bestow upon me some small service at your lotus feet. You are the queen. Now this, what I'm going to read here, this is very special what Srila Maharaj says here. You are the queen of the whole management of ecstasy, Ras Utsava. You are the queen of the management of the whole management of Rasa Utsava, ecstasy. Rasa means ecstasy. That is an unlimited flow of ecstasy. That is the speciality of Vrindavan. The Adi Ras, the original Ras, Madhurya Ras, conjugal mellow. All rasas are branches of that rasa. In its peculiar developing character. All the other rasas are branches of this adiras, conjugal ras, in its peculiar developing character. If analyzed, all rasas will be found within Madhurya Rasa. And Madhurya Rasa has been recognized as the highest mellow of devotion. So in his conversation with Ramananda Rai, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he rejected devotion that is contaminated with reason, jnana, jnana mishra. He said, Eho bahya, age koho ar. This is superficial. go further. Then Mahaprabhu accepted that real bhakti begins from the stage of pure devotion, unmixed with reason. When Ramananda suggested Dasya Ras, Mahaprabhu said, this is good, but go further. And then Ramananda mentioned Sakya Ras. Mahaprabhu said, this is also good, but go further. Then he came to Vatsalya Ras, the sonhood of Godhead. This is very good. Mahaprabhu then said, but go further. Then he came to Madhurya Ras. Yes, Mahaprabhu said, this is the best. At that stage in the development of rasa, Vrindavan is the most suitable place. Madhurya Rasa is found most extensively in Vrindavan. So it is said, Radhe Vrindavan Adishe. You are the queen of that sort of Leela, which is found in Vrindavan. And there the highest type of nectar is flowing. You are like a flowing river of nectar. The very nature of Krishna has been described as ecstasy himself. He is tasting the innate ecstasy of himself. He knows his ecstasy, and he feels it. But to distribute that innate ecstasy outside, a particular potency is indispensable, and that is known as Vladini. The gist of Vladini Shakti, or Krishna's internal ecstasy potency, is Radhika, who is drawing the innermost rasa, the ecstasy of the highest order, extracting it from within and distributing it outside. So it is said, Karunamrita Vahini. Ecstasy mixed with magnanimity is flowing from that great fountain. And just as a river flowing from the mountains, it may carry with its current many valuable minerals to the outside world, so the Vladini potency carries rasa out from the abode of the rasa swarupa, Krishna himself, ecstasy personified. And the flow of that river of nectar carries ecstasy and rasa, the flow of sweetness and magnanimity, to distribute it to others. Then another categorical change is effected within the mind of a devotee. In the meantime, in the course of his progress, he realizes, oh, Krishna is of secondary concern to me. I find my primary connection with you, Sri Radhe. I want your direct service and not the direct service of Krishna. This awakening of the heart, intimate adherence, and obligation to the next nearest agent. It develops in a surrendered soul. At this stage, the devotee thinks, I shall derive more benefit by giving my closest attention to the nearest agent, my Gurudev. I shall thrive thereby. And it is his concern to sanction the upper connections. That is his concern, to sanction the upper connections. Of course, our intentions should be pure and genuine. And the business of that agent is to give us a favorable, normal connection with the hierarchy of service. All our attention should be concentrated in the service of our Guru. This should be the idea. Our first tendency is to approach Krishna. And in that stage, the first thing to understand is that we are helpless. Of course, all things must be sincere. So first there is the stage of helplessness. And then we want the shelter of Krishna, sweetness personified. Then we are attracted to sweetness of a particular type and to approach that department. There we pray for the final, closest connection or permanent membership as a servitor there. This has been taught by Srila Raghunath Das Goswami as the highest achievement of the living being. Das Goswami lived for 16 years continuously in the association of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Swarup Damodar. And after they disappeared from this world, Raghunath Das, feeling disgusted with his future prospect, he went to Vrindavan to finish his life. But when he met Rupa and Sanatan there, he saw another vision, a dream of a new life. And then he found that although Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Swarup Damodar have disappeared from my physical eyes, they are living here in Rupa and Sanatan within their activities, in their preaching tendency. Mahaprabhu is here as living as anything. So he had to reject the idea of finishing his life, and with new vigor, he began to serve in Vrindavan. And this is the final. And Das Goswami has given us the understanding of our highest aspiration. He says, "O Radhika, I want your service. If you are not satisfied with me, I do not want Krishna, nor his land, Braja." This is his prayer, and he is admitted as the Prayojan Acharya, the Guru who has shown us what is the highest aim of our life, Prayojan Tattva, the ultimate destination. And this shloka proves his position as the giver of our destination. So that shloka will finish tomorrow, and we'll complete that tomorrow. Srila Raghunath Das Goswami Pada Ki Jai, Srila Rupa Goswami Pada Ki Jai, 6 Goswamis Ki Jai, Srila Panuga Guru Varga Ki Jai, Sachinandan Goswami